r/AskReddit. What's the best way you've seen someone rebel against school rules? Kid pissed in the trash can when the substitute wouldn't let him leave to use the restroom. I'll never understand bullshit rules about not being able to use the restroom for 10 minutes or whatever the duck arbitrary time is set. We had a French teacher who was really bad and most people barely tolerated. It happened a few times that whoever arrived first would stand outside her door as if waiting for her to show up and unlock it, and the rest of the class would just queue up behind them pretending to believe them. Meanwhile, the teacher would just be sitting inside wondering where her class was. Me and my Spanish class did this once, but the difference was we loved our teacher and just wanted to play a joke on her. We also told her that the whole class was going to skip the next day and she didn't believe us. We skipped except for maybe 3 kids and got ice cream instead. We showed up at the end of the period and brought her ice cream too and she just shook her head. What a woman. She's like a second mom to all of us. Senior year, my school banned jackets. A friend was cold, wore his jacket to lunch, and the VP told him to take it off. Friend pulls out the student handbook and asked where it said he couldn't wear it. VP flips for a while and ends up showing him the comma or anything the administration seems disruptive clause. Friend rolls his eyes but takes off his coat. The next day, friend comes in with the same tweed sport coat the VP wore every day. Back in the 1980s there was one kid in my school was hardcore into the punk scene. Had a bright blue, 6 inches high, razor thin, stand up straight mohawk. The principal gave him detention for being a distraction, etc. And his parting words that day were, "And tomorrow, no more blue mohawk." The next day the kid came in with the same mohawk, only bright pink. Just after the Virginia Tech shooting, when I was in high school, the administration banned backpacks, messenger bags. Purses were okay though. One guy shows up to school with a purse. They suspended him for 2 days. The next day, most of the guys showed up with purses carrying all of their things. They lifted the backpack ban. Edit. Looks like it wasn't just my school either. I went to a Catholic grade school growing up that had a strict boys' hair length policy. It couldn't touch the collar of your shirt and I wanted long hair. So the principal came in one day to talk to the class. When she was leaving the room she called me out for my long hair in front of my classmates. My response was to point to the cross hanging above the door and said Jesus had long hair. She didn't know what to say right away and seemed embarrassed, but then pulled me outside and yelled at me to get it cut. Don't mess with Catholic nuns. In high school during the student body president election my friend started a campaign that was kind of a meme at the time. It was a poster that featured a green faceless figure in a suit that said vote for nobody. Nobody tells the truth. Nobody will fight for you. Nobody cares, with nobody being personified as this faceless figure. We put up posters for it with all the others and even started a Facebook page for jokes. My buddy even had a green full body morph suit and planned on running on stage during the other speeches and dancing around. Eventually the admins got word what he wanted to do and called him in and told him if he so much as even went to the assembly in costume or not he would be suspended. So he didn't go to the assembly and all the posters were taken down. Instead he just showed up to school in the suit and just walked around waving at people and giving finger guns at passers-by. He was suspended anyway and went down as a legend for it. In 3rd grade, early 90s, my brother did not want to participate in some sort of multiple class activity. He just hung around the edges until a teacher approached him and told him, "Now dear, you can't be here without participating." Brother took what she said to heart and waited for a chance to slip away. He made it about 3 miles before a family friend noticed him and drove him the rest of the way home. I remember mom being upset at him, but even more angry at the school for taking 4 hours to notice he was gone when they took a head count after lunch. I went to a very Christian school where on Halloween we were allowed to dress up for that day, but we couldn't wear any unholy outfits, like ghosts, demons, or basically anything scary, or witches. Now, my friend had an idea to screw over the teachers, so the next day she showed up in a witch costume, but it was a 17th century Salem witch trials witch. She's wearing a Puritan dress and holding a Bible. The teacher asked who she was. She would say, "I'm a witch." The teachers were put in a situation where she was technically a witch but it was historical blah blah blah. She did end up at the principal's office for breaking the rules. She got to wear it though. Hey Joe, aren't you supposed to be in class? Yep, one word. Doesn't look like much in text, but he said it such full acceptance and resolution that the teacher didn't follow up or say anything else. Just, okay, got it, you're not going. I'll move on and not waste any more time here. And they kept walking. Sometimes attitude is everything. Sometimes you can say a lot with a single word. When I was in high school, there was a rule implemented that if you showed up late to school, you had to go to the front office to get a detention slip. You would then have to give it to the teacher for that period, who would then mark it down, and you were required to go to lunch detention for that day. I figured out by the third slip that literally no one cared. Teachers, security, or students. So when I was subsequently late for the rest of the year, I would take out an old slip that I had from a previous detention, walk through school, give it to my teacher to mark down, then take it back to give to the lunch detention supervisor. But I never went to detention because the front office didn't have record of me being late. I was late no less than 50 times my senior year, only having been reprimanded the initial 3 times. I even told my parents about it after I had graduated and even they agreed it was dumb and funny. I was in a Christian high school at the time. The day before winter break rolls around and I had packed a few Toblerone chocolate bars and some notes for the teachers I most appreciated, with the intention of leaving them as a Christmas gift. Before school, the principal made a public announcement that students were not to give any teachers any gifts unless we were going to give all teachers the same gift. This was obviously a bit of a problem since I couldn't exactly come back the next day with additional candy bars. So I marched into her office to address this issue. Upon entering the office, I made a show of opening a chocolate bar and breaking off exactly one piece and placing it on her desk. I told her that I was going to give her a full candy bar, but I now had to share her chocolate bar with other teachers that I didn't really care so much about anyways. That rule was quietly lifted. So I went to high school in South Texas, an area in which it almost never snows. For me, this doesn't mean anything, but I have lived in most of the North for my life, so I know what it's like to play in snow. However, somehow it ended up snowing overnight, and by snowing, I mean like what snow looked like in the North, deep and not just thin and watery. These were immensely heavy flakes. We were all sure that they would cancel school because Texas does not have salt machines or snow plows and the roads were super slick. A lot of parents didn't want their kids to go to school because they didn't feel comfortable with a bunch of new high school drivers on ice. Yet alas, they of course did not cancel school. A little rain knocks out our whole district, but a foot of snow and nothing. My mother made us take the bus because although she felt comfortable driving in snow being from Illinois, Texas drivers are more aggressive and the roads weren't properly cleared. I took the bus and it was like being on a safari tour. Kids were taking pictures of the icicles on trees and shit, all wide-eyed. It was funny. Once we got to school, though, the campus looked like a war zone. No one would go inside and had instead resorted to snowball fights on the entire campus and parking lots. Once the bell rang, of course no one went inside. I watched from the window as the vice principal went to the front of the school and commanded the kids inside, of course getting nailed in his baldest head by snowballs. He finally managed to round up the rogue kids and we all went about first period. I had a relaxed teacher who knew no one would pay attention, since half the class was missing anyway. She let us act out the Civil War with snowballs and took us outside. While we were playing outside, we all paused as we heard the fire alarm went off. The school came pouring out for the next 2 periods. Dude that pulled the fire alarm is a legend and lives on at our school till this day. He did in fact get arrested, along with another kid that thought it'd be smart to throw ice at a cop. That was the one time I saw the high school completely not have a handle on anyone. Teachers said boys need their shirts tucked in, never said how much needs to be tucked in. So when one of my friends got told to tuck in his shirt, he stood still, used one finger, and tucked in a tiny portion of the back of his shirt into his pants, then walked off. Was later called to the office because they thought he was acting out and not obeying rules. But the kid's parents said that he followed the rule. It never said the whole shirt needs to be tucked in. So the principal, secretary, and teacher all have to let the kid off. The next day, The principal makes an announcement to the whole school that boys need to have their entire shirt tucked in the entire way. We laughed about it. Blistering heat to the point of people passing out. We're all forced to wear black trousers. We're dying of the heart and a guy comes in shorts. Gets sent home only to return after reading the school rules on uniform. He is in a school colors plaid skirt. Ducking legendary. Okay, so we need to have clear backpacks, right? This kid puts quite the vulgar image depicting the counselor on one of his notebooks and packs it against the edges of the pack. This was prior to smartphones circa 2002. One of my classmates was a regular class clown. He would buy brownies in the cafeteria and roll them up in his hand so they looked like a convincing piece of poo. He would then do all sorts of antics with this poo. Put it on seats, throw it at people, what have you. Obviously the school staff caught on and he got in trouble. This guy didn't go quietly though. He was required to sit alone at lunch for the entire school year. There were months left before summer. The one teacher who made sure his punishment was severe made regular rounds of the lunchroom to maintain order. She would pass his lone seat during her rounds. One day he made another very convincing pastry sauce poo and had it ready for her when she passed. The entire lunchroom was watching out of the corner of their eyes while maintaining an alibi conversation with the people close to them. When she passed, he stood up and snuck behind her and slipped the pastry poo in her purse that she was carrying on her shoulder, and he quickly ran back to his seat. The lunchroom burst into laughter and the teacher had no idea why. Until later, of course. The dude was an artist at rebellion. My brother missed enough school during the year that the school required he attend summer school. The penalty for not attending summer school? You'll be kicked out of summer school. So he never went, and they didn't hold him back, because he knew all the material. Not me, but my friend's dad. So a good 50 years ago, his teacher told him his tie was the most important part of the uniform and he had to wear it no matter what. That lunchtime he gathered half his school year, and the next day, about 100 people turned up wearing nothing but underwear and a tie. When I was in grade 7, our last class of the day, students would always bring in snacks. Our lunch shift was way too early in the day, so by the end of the school day we'd all be feeling hungry. And we were all told by our teacher that if we didn't have enough to share we couldn't eat in the classroom. One day, almost all of us brought in enough food to share, even with the students that didn't bring anything in. We even synchronized the times that we pulled all our food out. Our teacher was clueless. She had no idea what to tell us. There wasn't any school-wide no food in classrooms rule, so she couldn't run to the principal. Finally she gave in to our malicious compliance and allowed us to share food for the rest of the period. After 9/11 my school made a rule where we had to wear our school Ids. They went overboard quick, handing out detention to anyone who didn't wear one. One kid had his id blown up and put on a shirt. On the back it said, "Yes, I'm wearing my ducking id." He got detention for not wearing it with the shirt. They're bringing back all that id stuff where I go. During my senior year of high school, 2008, my school got super strict about cell phones. It got to the point that we weren't allowed to have them out during any point in the day, not even during our lunch period. They claimed that we would send each other test answers or something like that. Anyway, a friend of mine who was a year below me was tired of the rule and how rude teachers were when enforcing it. He literally looked at his phone to check the time and got it taken from him for the rest of the day. That next week he comes to lunch with two older/non-functioning flip phones. He takes the first out and pretends that he's talking to someone on it. A teacher was instantly on him. They walk over and hold their hand out for him to give it up. He looks at the teacher and then proceeds to break the flip phone in half and puts it in their hand. The teacher was speechless. She just walked away without saying anything. He takes the second phone out and does the same thing again. The second teacher thought it was pretty funny. Flash forward to 2015 and I start working at the school as a student mentor. And now everyone is allowed to have their phones out pretty much at any time. How things change. Elementary school had a ban on extreme hair colors. My brother shows up with fire truck red hair. Principal stops us both as we're entering the school and she's going off on my brother. She's berating him, saying, "Who do you know that has red hair like that?" Without skipping a beat. Ronald McDonald. Principal just grabbed him, drug him into the office. My 4th grade brain was in shock that he just won up to grown up like that. She called my dad and he promptly didn't give a duck, and months later bro went from red to green to purple. Bro, you made it to the end. You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content. It's free and that's a great price.